Hello, my name is Riley Neal, and today I will be presenting a creative thesis entitled It Takes a Village, a public relations plan for foster youth. Before I get started in my presentation, I would like to give a special thank you to all those who made this project possible. Starting with my mentor, Dr. Rowland, and my second reader, Dr. McElmore, I thank them for their guidance both in the research and writing development of this project. I also give a special thank you to my honors classmates and honors professor, Whit Behringer, who gave me feedback throughout my process of this project and helped make it what it is today. Home. When I say that word, there is something that we all picture. Everyone might picture something differently, whether it be coming home after a long day and having someone greet you at the door, whether it be when you're picked up after school and taken to soccer practice, whether it be arguing over the dinner table on a math problem you just can't figure out. It might be a warm meal, a laugh after an inside joke. It might be something that is more of a feeling rather than a place. Someone telling you they support you, they hear you, they accept you. It might be someone who listens, understands, and overall supports you. The feeling of home might be just one of stability, of having a place to call your own and having a feeling that you know is stable and always there for you. Now, when I say the word home, there's something that all of us can picture. But the fact is that currently over 4,000 children in the state of Arkansas and nearly 257,764 and counting children within the United States do not know what home is. They are in the Arkansas foster care system and have never had that sense of stability in their lives. Now, when looking into the foster care system, I first looked into the different outcomes that are commonly found within our national foster care system. I found that out of the 3.3 million reports of violence against children, about 251,764 children are actually placed within the foster care system. In that system, 1 in 5 will become homeless after the age of 18. Only half will be employed by the age of 24. Less than 3% will earn a college degree. 71% will be pregnant by the age of 21. And 1 in 4 will experience PTSD. Now, these statistics bothered me. It bothered me that when a child enters the system, it is more likely for them to fail than it is to succeed. And I wanted to think of ways that why this was happening and how these outcomes came to be. In doing that research, I found there's very different causes that can lead to these outcomes within foster children's life. First, it's found that many foster care children have a higher percentage of mental health issues than children that are not in the system, as it is estimated that nearly 80% of foster youth suffer from a significant mental health issue, around 4 to 5 times the amount that is found in the general population. This is done by a study by Howard in 2018. Many of the mental health issues derive from neglect, abuse, and trauma that foster youth have experienced. Now, when combating these mental health issues, a lot of children are prescribed psychotropic drugs. Now, while it's not a problem to take medication to help mental health issues, it can be a problem when it is overprescribed and when it is not given with any support or guidance that these children have to follow. As a report done by the Government Accountability Office found that foster kids were more likely to be prescribed 5 or more psychotropic drugs at an age and at a dose that exceed maximum FDA-approved levels, both which carry serious health risks. Now, when on these medications, especially at these high dosage levels, it is imperative that these children have people that are observing them and supervising their reactions to all these drugs. But it's found that social workers in the state of Arkansas have, on average, 20 to 25 cases at a time. This means that a single social worker should care about 25 children's school reports, their home reports, their adoptive parents reports, their medical reports, their therapy reports, and just their overall, how are they doing? This is an extreme amount of workload for one single person, and in fact, is basically impossible to actually do at a rate that every child is cared for and observed in the way that they deserve. This causes an overall lack of stability in these children's lives. A lot of times they do go unobserved and under the radar in situations that can get themselves harmed and overall leads to a life that usually enters these dangerous outcomes that I just talked about earlier. That is why, when looking at these statistics, I wanted to do something to help. I wanted to do something that could help those that are already trying their best to improve the foster care system and the lives of foster care children that are in it. That is why I wanted to create a public relations campaign that is evidence-based, that motivates a target audience to get involved and help foster children. To do this, I did a partnership with two local nonprofits within Faulkner County. The first one being CASA, which is a court-appointed special advocate for children. This is a national organization that takes volunteers across the nation and actually gives them a role to be the voice of a child, both in the courtroom and also outside of it. While lots of adults are around in a foster child's life, like attorneys, social workers, their parents, their adoptive parents, their foster parents, a lot of times there's no one who is truly voicing the needs and the wants of that child. That is exactly what a CASA does. They are the voice for a child and actually ask the question of, what does the child want for their own life and their own future? This CASA usually becomes a mentor to that child and is someone that can stay with them and be a stable figure through their ever-changing lives of moving home to home, getting new social workers, new attorneys, and just going through the different stages within the foster care system. Now, The Call is a Arkansas-based nonprofit that is religiously affiliated to make sure that every single child in the state of Arkansas has a home to go to. They do an excellent job of recruiting foster and adoptive parents throughout the state to have open doors to allow children to never have to sleep at a DHS office, but instead have a place to go and stay, whether permanently or through a short period amount of time. To get a better idea of these organizations, I actually met and did an interview with each director of each nonprofit. By doing these interviews, I was better able to get an idea of what the organizations needed and what they had done in the past that had worked and that had not worked. By doing this, I created a coded interview system that helped me establish what I wanted the campaign goals to be. I took scripts of both the interviews and used a coding system to figure out where the organization was deficient and where the target audience was deficient. I found two different areas where the organization was deficient in knowledge and experience in public relations and reaching and informing their audiences. The areas where I found the audience was deficient based on the interviews was in their lack of knowledge of foster care, their lack of taking action and commitment to volunteering, the lack of diversity within volunteers, and a change of perspective needed on foster care and adoption in general. By going off of these interviews, I was able to establish each campaign's goals. For CASA, I wanted to overall increase the volunteers and the amount of diversity within the volunteer pool. Currently, most CASAs are women over the age of 65. And while this is great, a lot of children cannot relate to that CASA in the way that they could a college volunteer, someone who is right out of childhood themselves that can be a mentor and a role model for these children to relate to in a way that's different from a older individual. The Call, I wanted to overall increase foster and adoptive parents within Faulkner County and increase the amount of support around these parents so they don't feel like they're going through this progress alone, but really the community of Conway and Faulkner County in general has their back and is there for every step to take care of these children as a village together. To do this, I specifically wanted to focus on certain target audiences for this campaign. First, I focused on UCA students to get them to become CASA volunteers. To do this, I created a survey and surveyed over 60 students within my target audience to get a better idea of why they currently volunteer, what motivates them to volunteer, and why they currently are not volunteering within the foster care realm. By doing this survey, I got a better idea of what motivates students to volunteer and then use those persuasion techniques within my content that I created. The call, I interviewed individuals that the call gave me a list of who were already somewhat involved with the call, whether that be that their business had done some work with the call before, they might have become a volunteer themselves, or attended a few classes. They had never taken that next step of becoming a foster or an adoptive parent. So I wanted to take this campaign and take them to that next step and actually get them to commit to being a foster and adoptive parent. To get a better idea of where their headspace was, I did interviews with people who had already foster and adoptive parents to get a better idea of why they became a foster and adoptive parent and what was that final push that made them stay motivated and committed to becoming a foster and adoptive parent. Overall, I used the method of the persuasion technique called the foot in the door approach. This approach is the idea that if someone does a smaller step, they are more likely to do a larger step in the future. For instance, if a person is donating only $1 to an organization, it's hard for them to say no to that. Sure, they will donate $1. But a few years down the line, when they're asked to do $10, because they've already donated $1 to the organization, they're more likely to donate $10. Once you've taken a small step, it's easier for you then to take a larger one. That is the overall idea of this campaign, that if there's a small step that you can take to help foster children, you should take it. And then further down the line, by maybe because you once were a volunteer, or you once donated a backpack, or you once tutored a foster child, you're more likely to become a foster and adoptive parent yourself. Overall, I want this campaign to increase the stability within foster children's life through small actions that can make their lives easier. That is why I created the It Takes a Village campaign, as it does take all of us to solve the foster care issue in the state of Arkansas. For each nonprofit, I developed 10 social media graphics, a blog post, a fact sheet, and a campaign outline for them to use that was specifically geared towards their specific target audience and the goals that I wanted to reach within the campaign. I then created the content. As you can see here, I used a specific branding for each organization that they already stick to, using their colors and branding. By also creating my own tagline and logo, I was able to create the content in a way that people could tell it's a campaign, but also can relate well to the brand and the content they've already created themselves. To do this, I broke down an example of how college students could help the foster care system in easy ways that have benefits to them. I laid this out plainly, as you can see here, with giving an example and then giving specific reasons of why this could benefit them, such as supporting a child, getting volunteer hours, and that overall there's a low time commitment of just tutoring a foster child. I gave more examples such as donating a backpack or duffel bag or becoming a full-on CASA volunteer. I also created content for the call that was different but also stuck to the same ideas of wanting to gain more foster and adoptive parents and for others to take small steps around them to support them and to get involved with helping the foster care system themselves. I did the tagline, "Make it feel like home," as we are all trying to make it feel like home for these foster care children, and then gave another very easy way that people can get involved and help the foster care system without taking that full step of being a foster and adoptive parent. I also used an emotional appeal in some of the content that I created by using real photos of foster care children that I got from the Z Project and making sure that this was really laid out in a way that's both moving, but also gives real steps that people can take to help these children. Now, after I did this content creation, I then presented the material. I took the pre-recorded presentations that were about 16 minutes each and gave an overview of the project, the foster care system, the outcomes that are commonly found within the foster care system that I've shared with you today, a testimonial video of a foster care child in Arkansas, and then showcase all 10 social media graphics created for each individual campaign. Now, when presenting this material, people were able to get a better idea of what the problems in the foster care system are currently and what they can do specifically to help these issues. Before they were actually viewed this presentation, I asked them a pre-test of 10 questions to get their overall, what they already know about the foster care system and their attitudes and beliefs in getting involved with it. I then showed them a pre-recorded presentation of each campaign, and then they answered a post-test of 23 questions. This overall gave me an evaluation of how effective each campaign was, as I wanted to be able to show the nonprofits that these campaigns would work before handing over the content to them. This then I took away based on that pre-test and post-test evaluation on how effective each campaign was. For CASA, I found that 83.3% of participants stated that they were more likely to become volunteers of foster care after watching the presentation. 83.3% also said they're more likely to share the content on their own social media, and 66.7% stated that they're more likely to take one small action a year, such as becoming a tutor, donating a backpack, or getting a few volunteer hours in at an event to help foster care children. I also found that with the call, 75% said they were more likely to become an adoptive parent, 75% said they're more likely to become a foster parent, and 75 participants said that they had a realization that the foster care system is an issue within Faulkner County. Now, I overall found that these were really effective results, and I was very proud of how the campaign was able to effectively communicate the goals that I wanted to reach with each target audience. Now, when taking a step back and reflecting on this project, I wanted to add to the overall discussion of how public relations campaigns can be used in nonprofits. A lot of times it's an idea that there needs to be a large marketing team and a lot of money behind PR content, but that is just not the case. I was able to create effective PR content as just one individual and with very limited resources and a $0 budget. This was to overall add that it does not take a lot of money and a lot of people to create an effective PR campaign, and that people in nonprofits should use PR campaigns more often to reach their goals and get the help they need for the communities that they impact. I also wanted to add to the overall inclusivity of foster care campaigns. A lot of times foster care campaigns are only targeting middle-class families or older women who can take care of children. But really, we see that every single person has a responsibility and the ability to help foster care children. It does not take being a parent already. It does not take making a lot of money. And it does not take a lot of training to do certain steps to help a foster child in need. I also would like to see in the future a broader audience applied with this campaign. I'd love to target specifically only men to try to increase the amount of male volunteers within the foster care system and see how this campaign could impact them either in the same way or differently than it did the target audiences that I already created it for. Overall, it is not someone else's job to take care of the foster care children in our community. It's not your neighbors. It's not someone who already has children. It's not a teacher's or someone who just knows more about it. It is, in fact, all of us, as we are the village around foster care children. It is our job to invest in them as the youth of today are the future of tomorrow. It does not take large steps, but instead takes all of us taking small steps to overall improve those outcomes that foster care children face every single day. So, until children can find their home, let us be their village. Thank you.